Good day, my friends. It's your old pal, Jordan the Lion. How are you all doing today? I hope you said well. The last couple times I've come to Nashville, we've done some really interesting vlogs with my friend Shannon, and he has more to show us. So I thought before we left, we should go over there and let him tell us about one of his childhood heroes. He actually, I guess you could say, has the unofficial museum to his own childhood hero. What Bozo was to me, Blinky was to him. So let's go see Shannon. Daze with Jordan the Lion begins right now. So we've been here before, and I always tease this. I probably tease this 2 or 3 times now, but I had come into Shannon's fun room here before, and I didn't know anything about this clown I was seeing in front of me. And when Shannon told me his story with Blinky, I just said, you know what, we got to talk about this. So Shannon, tell me who Blinky is to you. I guess basically, I was telling people you have basically his museum here, how you acquired this stuff and how you came to know Blinky.
Well, Blinky was like Bozo to a lot of people, you know, in like Chicago they had Bozo and other areas of the country, but Blinky was the equivalent to Bozo in the Denver area. And that was in the early days of television, when television was the main form of entertainment. And in, you know, the early days of television, a lot of the stations, they didn't have a lot of network feeds, so they had to come up with their own programming, figure out what they're going to do for the airtime. And so kid shows were popular, and Blinky was that star in Denver for kid shows. And so I watched him when I was a kid. I started watching him when I was about 5 years old. I'd come home from school and watch him on TV.
How long was he on the air?
He started in 1958. He started at KKTV, which was in Colorado Springs, and then moved to a bigger market in Denver at KWGN, which was a sister station to WGN, who had Bozo in Chicago. It's the longest career of a children's television host in the entire history of American broadcasting.
Really? Really? How many years was that he was?
40 years.
Wow.
And that's one personality. You know, like Bozo had franchise. And
yeah, absolutely. Like 3 different Bozos, yeah.
Right. But this was one host, one character, one personality. The whole
That's
time.
a lot of kids over 40 years to reach. So
it is.
I notice, you know, when I post videos with you and we show any of this stuff, people immediately say, I remember Blinky. I watched Blinky. So you were that kid. Now, at some point, Blinky retired, and one of the questions I asked you, because of me being a Bozo fan, was, is there any of this available to be seen? Because I know with the Bozo shows, it's almost impossible to find Bozo shows. What's the story with that?
Unfortunately, back then, just for economics, they didn't save any of the tapes. So they were these TV-grade videotapes that were just reused over and over
Taped
until they
over.
wore out. So there really isn't a library of the shows of of what he did. So most of that is just recorded in the hearts of everybody that remembered watching him.
That's pretty crazy, isn't it? To think of that a 40-year career is could be forgotten except for the memories of those who saw it at the time.
Yeah, that's right.
Now you set out to find Blinky and acquired a case full of his belongings. Now, can you talk to me about what Blinky was doing after he retired and how you found him, how you became friends?
Well, all throughout the time that he was on television, he had an antique store, and it was called Blinky's Collectibles. And
was he dressed as a clown in there by any chance? Okay.
No. Now this is a replica of the sign that was on the store. So he used that clown image and his name, because everybody in Denver knew who.
That's why I wondered if he dressed up as a clown in there by chance.
No. But he had the antique store. So years after the show was over with, I went and introduced myself to him, and we became
at the store.
Yes, and we became really good friends. And it was so cool because that was in the latter part of his life. He was there at the early part of my life through the television.
Yeah.
And then we actually became friends in real life at the end of his life.
Did he like to talk about his career, or were you guys just friends in a normal way, or was it like a... Because I know all the different things you've done, I'd almost say like a mentorship. Was it kind of like that?
Yeah, in fact, when I was a kid, he was the first TV personality I ever watched, the first TV show I ever watched. And when I went to Denver to be on a show, it was the first television studio that I went into. So the whole experience was incredible, and it really made an impression on my life. And he's the reason why I went into the entertainment industry.
Wow.
So when we would get together, we would talk about all kinds of things. We loved the circus, we loved clowns, we loved the history of that. And then, of course, we would talk about his career, which was great for me, and I think it was great for him too, because you know, he wants to be remembered for, you know, for what he did on television. And so we always had, well, we were never short on conversation. It was just like we always had something to talk about.
There you go. Don't start teasing me. I know better. No, you're just teasing me. Liar, liar, pants on fire. They like to tease me. It's all right. They have fun doing it.
So did he entrust this stuff to you, or did he have an auction? How did you come upon acquiring what looks to be his entire makeup kit, his costume, his wig? Yeah. And like you said, you got the one thing that you always wanted, which was what?
The nose.
You got his nose.
It's funny when you're a kid and you're just fascinated with certain things. You know, like I would watch that show as a kid and I would see this big red nose. And it was not like any other clown nose I'd ever seen. And I thought, I want that nose. I want Blinky's nose. And I can't believe that I actually have it. But a lot of this stuff was acquired in different ways. Some of his stuff went to auction. Some of it was donated to me by both Blinky and his family members. And when he passed away, I was in his will to get everything that pertained to Blinky.
Really?
So, yeah, so here it all is. And this is a lot of it, but I still have a lot more in storage. I just don't have the room right now to display it.
Well, let's take a look at it, and you can talk about things as we see them and what they either were or maybe how they pertain to your memories.
Okay.
So first off, we have that nose right there. That is, what do you think that's made of? And was that, did he only have one nose his whole career?
He actually had 3 noses his entire career, and the nose is rubber, and that's the only surviving nose. And he made them himself. He figured out a way. He invented a way to make a nose. It's called the Russell Scott clown nose method. And it's where he paints rubber onto a wooden form, with so many layers, and then peels it inside out, and then that becomes the nose.
Wow, interesting. Was it comfortable? Have you ever tried it on?
I haven't.
Really?
It's got a lot of resin in the back of it and everything, but I'm sure it had to be comfortable because the amount of time that he wore it, it would have to be comfortable for him to be able to wear it that long.
And then here we have his wig. Always the orange wig?
Yeah, that was a wig, a real high quality wig he got from Germany, and I don't know if it was colored that way at the time or if he had it dyed that way. But yeah, that was his iconic wig.
And then we have down here some of his, looks like his clown white makeup.
Yeah, and that tube you see there, that's surgical glue. And that's what he would use. You know, a lot of clowns use spirit gum, which is popular in the theater business to glue on appliances like that. But he would use this. He found it more comfortable, and it would keep the nose on throughout the entire taping.
Now, were the glasses part of his costume as well, or were these just for applying the makeup?
That was just his personal pair of glasses that he would use to apply the makeup.
Okay.
And he used various makeups. Stein's makeup, which is in the big can in the back, the Stein's
that's what Kiss uses.
Yeah, that is like the industry standard for any theatrical clown makeup. And but he would use different ones. In fact, these 2 cans right here that say red and pink on them, those are old film canisters. Back before they had the video, the TV stations would receive PSAs and so forth on film. So he took some of the empty cans and just mixed his own red and his own pink in those cans.
That's really cool. That's pretty inventive. So you have your own custom colors.
Mm-hmm.
And there he is applying the makeup. Now that's interesting. Honorary ringmaster of the Ringling Brothers Barnum Bailey Circus.
Uh-huh. He loved the circus. In fact, the whole reason why he became a clown is because he loved the circus so much. he started building a miniature circus when he lived in Oklahoma. He's from Oklahoma.
Oh.
And his miniature circus became so popular, a lot of businesses would hire him to come and set up the circus to attract customers. And so his love for the circus is how this whole thing started. And by the time he became quite a TV celebrity in Denver, Ringling Brothers would have him be the honorary ringmaster at the auditorium there to open the circus.
What an honor, huh?
Yeah, and that's a page from TV Guide back in the day, advertising a show when it was in Colorado Springs on KKTV.
And that must be his whistle from being the ringmaster. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Did he wear these suspenders as part of his costume, or was that for the circus?
He did wear the suspenders. In fact, the photo in the back here shows him wearing the suspenders. You didn't notice those as much because he was really famous for a red plaid jacket.
Okay, kind of like in this this little puppet.
Exactly. And up on the sign here, you can see his plaid jacket. In fact, it's so iconic that people growing up in Colorado, anytime they just see that plaid pattern anywhere, it brings thoughts of Blinky to their mind.
Do you have that jacket?
I do. Yeah. Yes, I do.
That's awesome.
It will be on display eventually, but I need to get a case for it. I'm not going to have it out in the elements.
Do you think it could possibly make a cameo today?
Perhaps. Yeah, perhaps.
Now, what's the cake?
Well, you know, he celebrated, the highlight of the show was he celebrated your birthday. So if you had a birthday coming up, you could book an appearance on the show and sit on the show. And that's what I did when I was 10. I think my parents booked me on the show. We drove all the way across the state.
How long was the waiting list? I know Bozo's was like 20 years or something.
Yeah, I don't know. It had to be pretty intense because he was really famous.
Every episode probably had a kid on there.
Exactly. And as a kid, if Elvis Presley was standing next to Blinky the Clown, the kids would go right to Blinky, believe it or not. I mean, the fame that the kids had was equal to like the king of rock and roll. I mean, Blinky was the bomb on TV.
So he would wheel this cake out for the birthday and sing happy birthday to you?
That's right. He would celebrate. The finale of the show was that he would light the candle and then he would sing happy birthday. But he could never say birthday. He said birth.
Yeah.
And to this day, there are adults everywhere all over the world that sing happy birthday to their kids or their grandkids because they watch Blinky on the show.
Before I play the music, we've got some birthdays to celebrate at home, and of course, we got some in the clubhouse. Yes. Yes. You kids wake up now, because I'm going to sing. Oh, we're going to turn it red so I can read. That's great. I'm so happy. Colin is 4 at home today, and Rebecca is 6. And in the clubhouse, 3 of my very dear friends sitting there on the bench. Todd is 3, and Michael. Is that Michael or Michelle? Michelle is 2? Yes, there she is on the end in the pink dress. And David is 3. All right? Here we go. All right, you kids all get your smiles ready and turn and look straight ahead. Look out this way. That's it. So we can, oh, the music. Look out so we can get your faces on the camera there. See that? Get your smiles ready. Everybody look straight ahead. Here we go. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear children. Happy birthday to you. And I certainly hope you have a nice birthday all day long. I sang happy birthday. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, children. I sang it once. Happy birthday to you. That's enough. I sang it once. That's it. We're gonna have. Whoa! Whoa! We're sneaking away, but we'll see tomorrow. Same time. Meantime, please stay out of the streets. Shh, 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 shh.
The story with is that a wax figure?
It's actually a fiberglass figure, and I made this as a centerpiece to his museum exhibit. I wanted to have just more than a torso with an outfit on it. I wanted something that would show you what he looked like as a clown and kind of give you the feeling that, you know, you would have if you were in the studio as he was singing Happy Birthday to you.
That's so cool. Wait a minute, all the way down to a watch. Is that really his Mickey Mouse watch, or?
That is a replica watch, but the Mickey Mouse watch that he wore was personally given to him by Walt Disney.
Really? I figured, because I know you well enough to know if you have something like that I barely noticed out of the corner of my eye, that it must have some serious significance, and not just that he's wearing any old watch, so what a story.
And I did donate one jacket to the History Colorado Museum, which 2 years ago they traveled all the way from Denver over here to receive the jacket. And so they have one jacket that they'll eventually put on display at the museum in Denver.
That's great. Now what's the story with the painting?
The painting, shortly after he passed away, I believe he was 92 when he passed away. I started painting this. Now I had plans to paint it a long time ago, and I wanted to paint it and make prints of it that we could sell to raise money for the museum exhibit. And I loved Norman Rockwell so much, and so I was inspired by Norman Rockwell's famous triple self-portrait, because I felt I could tell Blinky's story with a lot of these elements in here. You know, like for example, he's looking in the mirror. That's how he started each day at the studio to put the makeup on.
Yeah.
There are things in here that have significance to his life. That hand puppet, he used many puppets on the show. The Cells Floto Circus poster here says Enid, which is Enid, Oklahoma, where he was born, and he was born on June 30th on a Thursday. And the clowns over here are clowns that inspired him. Great famous Ringling Brothers clowns. Otto Gribling is the hobo clown up here. And he learned how to apply makeup by, you know, talking to these clowns. And Lou Jacobs is the famous clown with the cone head. Very iconic clown for Ringling Brothers. And then, of course, Red Skelton. And then there's a rendering of his TV Guide ad. And because he had the antique story where he had a lot of fun stuff, a lot of old used musical instruments and stuff, we have the musical instrument here for that.
That's really cool.
In the later part of his life, he painted birdhouses and sold those, so that was in there for that. And then the final thing was the clown noses, because at his funeral, he asked me, when I planned his funeral, that it would be mandatory for everybody to wear clown noses.
You're kidding.
So we had everybody wearing clown noses, and I've got video of everybody coming in, and there's a bunch of guys handing out clown noses to everybody to put them on.
That's awesome.
And then halfway through, when they would take them off, we would go, we have to put our clown noses back on, please.
That's awesome. We had a couple more things in this case. In another case, what's the story with the bowler?
That was his hat. That was part of his persona. He had that gray hat, that plaid jacket. He had a clean white shirt with almost a Colonel Sanders type tie, you know, the shoestring tie.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And that was what you usually saw him in every day on TV. And then, of course, he had the huge clown shoes that were very similar to a Charlie Chaplin style shoe, not so wide. But long.
Did he do one pair of shoes? Or
That's
is that
the only pair of shoes. In fact, it's kind of cool when I look at those because he was wearing those when I met him as a child. You know?
Really? So oh, that's really cool.
It's really surreal to see those in a case now and know that I'm helping
in your
preserve
house.
That. Yeah. Yeah.
What's your plan? You keep saying museum. Is there a plan for a permanent display to Blinky somewhere, or?
My plan was to have all of this at History Colorado in Denver, which it will eventually go there. They don't have a lot of room right now, so the only thing that they were interested in right now was the jacket. Yeah. So I did donate a jacket and a hat and a pair of gloves at the time, but this will all eventually go to History Colorado.
That's great. I love that you preserve so much of it. And how you did it, that you guys bonded, became friends, and What are those? Oh, some of the membership cards. That's really cool.
Yeah, he was big on safety, and that was the main thing. Blinky taught safety. He would bring on firemen and different medical specialists to talk about safety and how to prevent accidents and everything. So he was big on safety, and so he taught kids how to be safe and stay out of those streets. Every day when he ended his show, he said, "Please, kids, stay out of those streets."
Now, what's up with the telephone? Did he have a bit with the telephone or something, I'm guessing?
He often talked to people on the phone. A lot of times he would talk to Mama Blinky. I can't remember what the conversations were.
And then here you have a photo of him wearing a different kind of hat. What's the story with his hat? Because it looks like you have the hat right here.
He would do a lot of comedy skits, and so every once in a while he would dress up in a different outfit. And I also have the Western jacket from that picture as well.
That's cool. And then I noticed that you have one of the hand puppets down here. One of the real famous, the dog.
Yeah, his name is Barney, and that's the one that is portrayed in the painting as well. And you can see by the picture, Blinky used to carry Barney in a basket. He had a fake hand, so it looked like he was just holding the basket. And Barney would interact with him.
That's so cool. Bozo kind of had something like that too, where he had like a dog that came out of a house and did something like that. So I love that they kind of shared at least like a similar take, because something worked with the kids, and it was always kind of like bringing in the puppets and animals and things like that.
Yeah.
And then back there, I noticed those have to be the birdhouses, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what he did in the latter part of his life. He painted birdhouses and sold them, and a lot of the kids that watched his show are now grown up, and they're buying them as collectibles and everything.
Are they hard to find?
They are, yeah. I don't know exactly how many he made, but there were a few out there. Now, this elephant and the trailer were hand-built by him, and these are one of the only remaining pieces of his miniature circus.
Wow, that's really cool.
He had all kinds of moving parts on it, and a lot of detail to it. And it was just his way to relax and to kind of live that circus life vicariously, through the miniature building.
What a cool display, huh? How cool is that to look up to somebody when you're a kid, be entertained by them, and then eventually be the one to save their legacy? So crazy for me to think that all those great kids programs that we all grew up on, none of those were ever saved. The Bozo show, the Blinky show. You can't just go on Time Life and buy a collection, relive your youth. It's unfortunate.
So I actually worked with Guinness a few years ago, Guinness World Records, because I was convinced that he had a world record for the longest career of a children's television host in the world. And worked with them for months. The paperwork was unbelievable. But they finally determined that there was a clown in Mexico that had beat the record by just weeks.
Oh.
But the only thing is, I could not establish an exact start date.
Right.
The stations had been sold so many times, their records weren't complete. It's possible that he does indeed have the world record, but I have to this day not been able to pinpoint that.
And they won't do like a U.S. record or anything like that, or American Okay.
I'm hopeful that someday I'll run into a newspaper article that will prove. Prove it. But it was fun to work on it. But it determined that he had the longest career in American television as far as a children's television host.
That says a lot too. Not only because he was willing to do it and wanted to do it, but that he didn't get replaced or didn't get canceled. I mean, that says a lot about how beloved he was in that town.
Yeah, and it was interesting because he was the first clown that I ever watched. And what I didn't realize at the time is that I was watching the best clown I would ever see in my life. And
you still feel that way?
Absolutely. I've worked in the circus. And not to say anything about the wonderful talents that I've worked with, but I would always measure them with Blinky.
What was it that made him so special?
I realized early on that it wasn't just the makeup. It was the personality inside that makes the clown,
Mm-hmm.
And he had this beautiful raspy voice. and this charisma that connected with children. And it's a formula that still works today, because even on the day that he died, I had sent a fan letter to a little girl who saw him on YouTube, fell in love with him. They contacted me and said, "Could we get a signed picture from Blinky?"
Yeah.
And it was delivered in her hands the day that he passed away.
Oh, wow.
And I've got a beautiful picture of her with this huge smile on her face. And you can see that charisma still touched those kids and was still magical to those kids.
That's amazing. How long did he live after he retired from doing the show?
He was 92. I'm trying to remember what year he passed. The show ended in 98.
Okay.
But he lived, I think he lived about 15 years or so, but don't quote me on that. So this is the iconic jacket of Blinky the Clown. So anyone who remembers Blinky when they watched him on TV, this is what you could instantly recognize as a Blinky the Clown jacket.
I love that you white gloved it too. That's amazing. Have you ever tried that on?
I haven't.
You haven't?
I haven't. No.
I know it's brittle, and I know what stops you from just one moment feeling the magic with that. The nose, I guess I can understand.
Yeah.
But the jacket, why not?
Well, I just don't know.
Is it sacred?
To me, it's sacred. It's like, this is Blinky's jacket, you know?
Nobody should ever wear it but him.
That's right.
And it's even tearing a little bit on... I mean, that's an old jacket,
Oh,
yeah.
it is. It's very old, yeah.
You can't see it from the outside, but from the lining and stuff, yeah, it's... Wow, that's so cool that you have that. And you also had the Western shirt we saw over there.
Yeah, yeah. Suspenders.
Oh, wow. You even got the pants, the suspenders.
They were real short, but really baggy.
Kind of like little Jimmy.
That's right. And here's the Western outfit. So this is the
that goes along with the hat.
That would go along with this hat, and it's featured here in the picture.
That's so cool. Now, did he leave that to you? I know, because you had mentioned to me some things had went to other people, and that you, having all this wasn't enough. You still are trying to get as much of his collection as you can.
That's right. The outfits actually came, I purchased them from a collector, because they had an auction at one point, and they sold a lot of the stuff that he had. So the outfits did come from a collector, and it was just a miracle that the person just contacted me out of the blue and said, "Hey, I've got this," because we didn't know who had it.
Oh, wow.
And they said, we want to sell it, and we figured that you would be the one to sell it to. And I said, yeah.
That's
I will
awesome.
take it.
Right where it belongs.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see what you get to eventually do with this.
Yeah, I just, he was such an icon in Colorado that he's worth remembering. And I think it's important that anybody who has somebody who has inspired them, it's important to remember them. It's important to thank them, to let them know how much impact they made in their lives, you know. It was a different time in television back then. And
you don't even have those kind of shows anymore. If anything, it's a PBS sponsored show that goes out across the country, but you don't have the local personalities. And I really miss that, because that when I was a kid in school and you had those you actually had the chance that they would come into your school. And they would come in and do like an assembly, and you go, wow, Mr. Goodbody, Slim Goodbody was here today, whatever. That's just not really the case anymore. You don't get to, I don't know. I think when it's right there in front of you and you get to see these people, I think it makes a difference.
Yeah, and back then we didn't have a lot of, formats to watch entertainment on. Television was pretty much it.
Yeah, minimal channels too.
That was a big deal. And clowns back then were not villainized like they are now.
You're right. Now everybody's afraid of them, or it's a fear thing.
They were heroes back then. They were superstars. When you saw them, you were like starstruck when you saw them. I mean, it was a really big deal for kids back in the 60s and 70s. Clowns were superstars.
Well, man, thank you so much for sharing this with me. And I really mean that, because until I met you, I'd never heard of him, never knew about him. And it's crazy to think there are so many more Blinkies that existed in this country for other kids in different areas. It's nice that somebody like you cared enough about him from what he gave you as a child to keep his memory alive.
Well, thanks for sharing it with everybody, Jordan. I appreciate that.
Well, that's what we do here. And, you know, you have more that we can talk about, so we will come back and talk about your other hidden room here that I'm just fascinated with. But thank you, Shannon, for today. This was great.
Thank you, Jordan. It's always good to see you.
Now, my friends, I challenge you. Go online and look and see what you can find about Blinky. Enjoy yourself. Be entertained. Thank you all for watching. We're going to call it a day. Thank you, Blinky, for your entertainment. And goodbye.